Macon, Florida, growing manufacturing in the Sunshine State.
Today I'm here at Pelican Wire, sitting with the CEO, Ted Bill. Pelican Wire grew over the years and really decades to become one of the leading manufacturers of wire. And it's really a pleasure and honor to for Ted to choose his location for Pelican Wire in Naples, Southwest Florida. Ted Bill, and meaning Pelican Wire is also a member of SRMA, which is our manufacturing association here in Southwest Florida. So Ted, how about we start by just, giving us your story?
Absolutely. I had to chuckle a little bit when you said that I got to choose where Pelican Wire is located. I'll explain.
Yep.
Pavel, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to share the Pelican Wire story. As you mentioned, my name is Ted Bill. I am CEO of Wire Experts Group. And I'm president of Pelican Wire Company. So Pelican Wire Company has been in Naples, Florida since 1976. I'm actually a second generation leader of the business. The company was originally founded by my parents, which is why I chuckled a little bit when you said I chose to be here. We moved here in
how about you chose to remain here?
Chose to remain here.
That's right.
I'll take that. I was in second grade, so I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. We were coming to Florida, but Pelican started up in kind of northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin area, where my family was originally from. Was just a little garage business that my father started.
I love all the stories when he started from the garage.
Oh yeah,
It stays in the family. That's the best.
Yeah. He borrowed. He was head of engineering for another wire and cable company up in the area. They met at the company. My parents met at that company, and they knew they wanted to move south. My dad borrowed some money from my grandmother. Borrowed $5,000.
Yep.
His employer had bought some equipment, and he was very involved in their acquisitions.
Mm-hmm.
And they had bought some equipment from a company, brought it to their business, and started using some of the equipment, but not all of it. There was some stuff that they didn't want to use. So he said, "Hey, are we ever going to do anything with this stuff?" "No, we don't want to mess around with that." "Well, do you mind if I buy the equipment and do some stuff on the side? As long as it doesn't interfere with your day job, go, knock yourself out,
ahead,
right?
yeah.
Go enjoy yourself." So he bought this equipment, hauled it over to his to their basement over in Wonder Lake, Illinois, and started making.
So had a big basement.
The way my mother tells the story, there was the wire machines, the washer and dryer, the basket with the dog and puppies that had just been born. So it
Wow.
I don't have any actual memory of it, right?
Yeah.
But I can only imagine the what an interesting disaster the garage the basement must have looked like. And my dad, so he bought these machines to insulate the wire.
Yep.
And then we had the wire had to be coated. It had to be dip coated. So we got the machines to do the insulating, but not the dip coating. So he went down to the local junkyard and found a couple of old stoves. Wow. Cut the sides out of the stoves, flipped them on their sides, and that was our first oven. And we have a picture of that somewhere.
What a story!
The old original stove. So, but quickly outgrew that space. They moved to an old farmhouse, and he built like a pole building.
So how quickly, you said, like within a year, 2 years?
Yeah. So he bought I think the company really started in 1967. That's when he bought the equipment. We actually incorporated in 69. So that's kind of when we officially consider the company having started, but they'd been dabbling around for a while. And part of the reason why they did this was they were living in northern Illinois, and they didn't want to stay there. They knew they didn't stay there
because it was the weather
south. So that's why they call it the Pelican Wire. They were sick of shoveling snow.
Yeah.
My dad had grown up in that area, but he had we had family ties in Texas, and he went to Southern Methodist University. So he went to school in Texas, was in the Army for a little bit at White Sands missile range, um, and then moved back to Illinois to take care of the family for a little while. And but then my grandfather on my mother's side bought a house down here in Naples. They came down, visited a couple of times, and just sort of fell in love with.
Yep, that's a nice area.
And that's how Pelican Wire wound up here. And there was no there was no expectations that the wire company was going to survive. Almost all the customers were out of the Milwaukee area. Milwaukee was kind of a hub for electronics back in the day. So we had all these customers in Milwaukee. So, we could drive there to go see the customers. So here we are moving the business to the sticks down here in Naples, Florida. We weren't the first manufacturer in Naples, Florida, but we were probably one of the first manufacturers.
Was it farmland here back then? Probably was like farmland, or how was it here?
Yeah, it was farmland. Really, it was more a fisherman's village. That's how I would describe it, right? It was, I mean, almost literally a one-stop light town at the time. And, just a little tiny fisherman's enclave. And, there was a small tourism industry, but not a huge tourism industry. We lived up in what's called North Naples now, but back then it was kind of nowhere, right? I lived up in Naples Park. Original building was down off of Taylor Road in J&C Industrial Park. Taylor Road was still unpaved at the time, so it was a little dirt road. And started with a little 2,400 square foot building, and we didn't know the wire company was going to survive down here. Dad did all.
It was the means to move to Florida, basically.
Pretty much, right? It
happened.
got us started, and but the wire company stuck and continued to grow. So it was a great move, and certainly a beautiful place to live.
Amazing, incredible story. I always love it to hear when, it's something started from an ideas and there was the garage situation, right? Or the basement in your case.
Absolutely.
And then it's just, wow, now you're just leading the industry, one of the premier wire manufacturers. So how about you tell us what industries you serve, what's your mission? Obviously, we can see here the core values.
Yes.
And then what about this growth journey? How did you grow the business?
Absolutely. Well, it was a mom and pop business literally when it first moved down here, but the wire companies continue to grow. Pelican Wire is really focused on custom engineered wire products. So we don't make building wire, right? If you go down to Home Depot and you see building wire on the shelf, that's not the kind of wire we make. We're very specialized on custom engineered products. We really focus quite a bit in the electrical heating type applications. So anything that would use what we call a resistance wire. So resistance wire is something that when you run electricity through it, it resists the electricity, and that resistance generates heat. So we're in a whole bunch of different applications where electrical heating is necessary. All of your military aircraft, when they are off base, they have to be able to de-ice themselves. So we have wire in the leading edge of most of the control surfaces on military aircraft. Anybody that lives up north has probably experienced a heated tile floor at some point in their life. Most likely that wire came through our facility. We're one of the leading manufacturers of that.
That's your market, the market share right there.
Yeah. That's a big chunk of it. But really, when you're manufacturing something, almost invariably at some point in time in the process, you're going to need heat.
Yep.
To melt something, sterilize something, cure something. And electrical heat is one of the simplest ways to introduce heat into a manufacturing process. So we just wind up in this whole slew of different applications, heated hoses, heated equipment that's all used for, moving things around, curing things, controlling viscosity. If you've ever seen an asphalt layer out, laying down the road, they've got a big pit inside that asphalt layer where the asphalt is being kept hot, but then they have to get it out of that container and down to the road.
That's right.
Do that through hoses, and all the hoses have heating elements built into them that are made of our wire. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if you didn't say that, I would have no idea.
Yeah.
I bet most of the listeners too.
Places that we wind up. So Pelican Wire does stuff for heating wire, and then we also do things for temperature measurement, primarily thermocouple wire. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Mhm.
You're heating something, you got to control the heat, you got to be
Yep.
able to measure where the temperature's at. They're kind of interconnected.
Incredible. So what did you do to grow the business? Like, how did you get clients? Where you market? How did you market? You know, like all these things. Because
Yeah,
I mean, especially in Naples, that's you said that all the clients were up north.
yeah.
So how, like, it's really fascinating. How were you able to keep the clients? Shipping, especially back then,
Mhm.
it probably was challenging. I know now still lots of truckers don't really like to go to Florida, but now it's changing because Florida is becoming a force for manufacturing,
Yeah.
and all our efforts here, if we want to be number one. I mean, right now we're number 10 in the country. We want to get to number 3. That's realistic, but I think we can even surpass Texas and California one day. Who knows, right?
Mhm.
But by 2030, I think we can really get to number 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, 2030 number 3, 2040 made it my number 1. Regardless, so how did you, like, what was really the journey of growing the business, getting the clients and all this kind of stuff? I
Yeah.
know you have a lot of product lines,
Well,
but
it's a very specialized thing. So in order to do these heating applications and temperature measurement applications, we've really become specialists around the various alloys that are used to make that kind of wire. So really, what's happened to us is we've just gotten a reputation in the industry for these type of products. So it's a tremendous amount of word of mouth. You know, the breadth of different things that
Mhm.
we're involved
Yep.
with. It's very difficult from a marketing standpoint to really focus on here's what our ideal market looks like. There's no trade show that we can go to where all of our customers are at. It just not that type of product. So really it's a lot of
Even nowadays, you don't really go to trade shows.
so we do some trade shows. There are some areas that we see of interest, particularly growth areas. We have been going to some trade shows around the oil and gas space. We go to some trade shows around textiles because we believe that wearable textiles, where you've got some electronics built into the textiles, or something that could be an area that we play in. We already do actually, like. You know, just kind of random example, right? But motorcycle riders, if you're up
Yeah,
north and you ride a motorcycle, you like to have a heated vest on. Well, that vest has got to get heated
I had no
somehow.
idea.
So
Really?
they weave heating wire into it, right? So you know, we look at these applications that our customers are currently in, and then we try to think about, okay, if somebody's using our wire to do this, then what are those things around the periphery that we might wanna look at? But even today, as much effort as we do put into marketing, word of mouth is really
Yeah.
important. And we've kind of grown up inside the wire and cable industry. It's a very large industry, right? And we play this very specialized niche inside the industry. So it's not unusual for us to get a call from another wire manufacturer saying, hey, you know, I've got so and so here, they're interested in this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
We don't do it. We know you do. Will you take a look at their application? And sometimes sometimes they'll try to be an intermediary, so they'll try and buy the stuff from us and then resell
Yeah.
to somebody
Yeah.
else. But what we find is that the product is so specifically engineered to each one of those applications that part of the value we bring to the table is the understanding of the products, how to design the product
Mm.
properly. And that really requires us to talk to the
Yep.
customer directly.
Well, that's I think that's a great example you just brought in, as how some companies, they see competition as somebody you want to hide it, you want to hide your everything from, you don't want to collaborate with them, and like it's your competitor, right?
Right.
But I think in the new perspective and how you can really grow your business is exactly what you said, is work with your competitors, because actually you can you can take advantage of each other's expertise. And at times, maybe, especially over here in Florida, disaster times, maybe if something happened to one of the facilities, maybe you can use
Right.
their facility as well, because you already have
Absolutely.
kind of the equipment or something that is relevant. And
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
that's very good example of how you really can collaborate with your competition, because at the end of the day, we're all looking for win-win. The competitor here is not looking out there, oh, how can I destroy somebody's business? No, they want us to be successful, and why can't we all be successful? I mean, the market is big, right? So we can all have our, if you will, the share of the pie.
Right.
And if we work together, we can have a bigger share, all of us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Totally agree.
So once again, I want to mention that you are a member of SRMA, a proud member of SRMA for many, many years.
Yep.
So tell us about, our manufacturing association. What do you take out of it? What's the benefits? And let's say mostly it's a manufacturing podcast, so we'll have other manufacturing companies listening. What do you think your takeaway from being part of SRMA, and what do you think about our association?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and that you asked earlier. Didn't really get a chance to answer it, and that is the question of shipping. You know, uh, because of where we're at, that's a perceived disadvantage, right? That logistically it's hard to get here.
Yeah,
But the reality is that there's a lot of consumption that happens in this area and not as much production. So we get a lot of trucks in this area that are deadheaded. So they come
yeah,
down here with a load, they release their load to wherever it is they're delivering, and now they've got an empty truck and they've got to figure out what are they
exactly.
going to do, right? Do they drive with an empty truck to a certain point in order to pick something up, or can they find
Yep.
something local? So
Empty meaning I'm losing money, right?
yeah, absolutely. Right. So it's actually not as much of a disadvantage as one might think to be in this area. Um, but but I think the state of Florida has a huge potential for manufacturing in the future. We've got a governor and state legislature that is very much pro manufacturing,
Yep.
right? They just put in place the manufacturing czar, right? The
Yes.
manufacturing liaison.
We've been
Made
preaching it for a
official,
long
right?
time.
We've always had one, but now they've made it official that we're
Yep.
always going to have one. So that's exciting. Another thing that people don't really appreciate about the state of Florida is that we have 16 deep water ports in the state of Florida. And most people don't realize that. If you look up and down the East Coast and even the West Coast, right? California has quite a few ports, but not as many as the state of Florida does, not as many deep water. And most of the East Coast, the state has one or two. That's quite a few ports.
That's so true. Also, people don't realize that we are a hub for ports.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. Sometimes even I'm talking to clients in Cape Coral, they don't even know there is Port of Manatee, and it's
right.
it's a growing and flourishing port.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because they're going to Miami.
Yep.
Why are you doing that?
You got Tampa.
There's Manatee right there.
These small ports, right? Jacksonville is a huge hub for
So many.
for commerce.
Actually,
There's a lot of
there was a company, huge company. They moved all the way from Pennsylvania, most of their manufacturing operations to Manatee area just because of the port.
yeah.
So they're making those massive liquefied LNG. So to transport them to a port, you need to get all these permits by train, by truck, by train. I mean, it's a disaster. It takes a long time, but very expensive. They moved here. They're 15 minutes from the port.
There you
And
go.
they are $1 billion company.
There you go. Yeah, it's a huge. I think it's a huge advantage for the state that we don't really take as much advantage of. The other interesting thing, kind of getting into the Southwest Regional Manufacturing Association, the SRMA. We've been a member for quite some time. What's interesting about this area and manufacturers and our story, kind of emphasized, right, is in line with this, is that people don't move their businesses here most of the time. They don't move their business here because it's a great place to manufacture, right? It's not known in
Well, it's changing.
circles,
It's
right?
changing, but
This is
I
not
know
the
which way
Rust
you're
Belt,
going. Yep.
this isn't the place that you bring a manufacturing company. So it's interesting to work with the business leaders in this area, because most of them did not move here because of a great business community. They moved here because of a great quality of life. right? That's why they're here. So the SRMA to me is this organization that has such tremendous potential to help get these manufacturers connected together and share an ecosystem
Yep.
of support that can be built in this area. And it's kind of all over the place, right? There's great educational support, there's great funding support, but you kind of have to go find those things if you are a business leader. And
And you have a lot of time to do that, right?
most of the manufacturers down here are small, right? They're small manufacturers. I think the last statistic I heard was that from Tampa down to Everglades City, there's about 2,400 manufacturers. But these are small companies, right? They don't have the resources to go.
And 90% of them are small.
Yeah, but right, 90% of them are small companies, right? So they don't have the resources to go develop these connections on their own. So I see the SRMA positioned to do great things for manufacturers. We got to get the word out and get more people connected to the organization so that we can provide those benefits to other manufacturers. You look at things like the manufacturing systems alignment team that we're doing with Florida Gulf Coast University.
Yeah,
Some of the
future
grant funding.
makers. Yeah.
Absolutely, the future makers, right? All of these organizations, they all want to help, but it's so hard on the side of the organizations to be able to do that one company at a time. It's right. It's so having an organization like the SRMA kind of connecting those dots together, really building a manufacturing community in Southwest Florida, I think is a huge opportunity. It's such a large, geographically dispersed area that sometimes
People don't realize it.
to get people together and but we're trying to make some inroads on that and really make some improvements as to how that's working. I'm excited about the we recently got some grant funding from the IDA from Lee County. I think that's going to be really beneficial for the organization. I'm really excited about the Manufacturer of the Year program. I think that's going to really bring some interesting and exciting attention to the manufacturing world. And it's great. It's not, this isn't, it's something that's being done using some real hard criteria about what is good manufacturing. So not only will it help us recognize a great manufacturer in the area, but it's going to help a lot of other manufacturers get better as well as they go through.
Exactly. Just the assessment process itself of the Manufacturer of the Year. It's based on the Baldrige standard, I guess.
Right.
It's an industry standard nowadays, right? It's the best in class. And we took the idea, copied the idea, and we're going to talk a little more about Florida Makes later, but I'm not going to mention it now. So we collaborate. So SRMA, we collaborate with other manufacturing associations in Florida, and one of them is SFMA, which is South Florida Manufacturing Association. Now they have this Manufacturer of the Year process been going for many years, very successful, billions and billions in impacts for companies in terms of after going through the assessment process and starting the improvement journey, they were able to generate more money. They were able to retain sales. Because of that, they were able to hire and retain people. So huge impacts, huge success stories. But now the Manufacturer of the Year process is such a big event. So I actually attended last year's manufacturer, and they have a red carpet rolled down. It's unbelievable. It's like they could actually call it Oscars for manufacturers. You had, I think, just about maybe 800, maybe even more people, all manufacturers.
Wow.
It's not like there is different industries. It's all manufacturing, just like all kinds of industries in manufacturing, but it's not, you don't have anyone else but manufacturers in the room.
That's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. What an event. So obviously we are just starting this year. It's the first time we're doing it in partnership with other organizations like the Lee County Economic Development, Horizon Foundation. They were doing it for many years as well. I think it's the 25th year going to be now. And they had this Manufacturer of the Year, but they didn't have the Baldrige process. They didn't really do assessments. It wasn't as intensive. So now SRMA is taking basically control of the whole process just for the Manufacturer of the Year. They're still going to call it Industry Awards, but we, SRMA, we're going to do the Manufacturer of the Year. And actually, I'm still looking for examiners. So the process goes, we have at least 5 examiners going and assessing the company. So I'm going to be the lead examiner, but I'm looking for examiners. So I think from your company would be great to send someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
we can chat more.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start the actual process of the assessment in June, because the qualification going until end of May, and then June, July we're gonna do the assessments. But that's exciting.
That's
and
great.
and another thing you touch base on is so first of all, yes, we have a lot of small manufacturing companies. We have some medium size, and obviously just a few large companies. But then you mentioned I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the SRMA is like the way I understood it, at least, it's like the hub that can connect all the dots for a manufacturer. Because you as a manufacturer, you're pretty busy, right? It's not like you have a lot of free time on your hand to start looking, okay, where can I find the best grant? Which organizations can give me some funding? Who can give me some help with training or whatever else is going on in the area? How can I find, or how can I maybe go to plant tours and learn some best practices? Or I want to get involved in a community and maybe join some committee, some advocacy efforts or whatever, right? So if you are a manufacturer yourself and you start looking for all these tens, maybe hundreds of different things are you really gonna do it? Probably not. Maybe you're gonna nail one or two, but you wouldn't really have this network. So what SRMA does, and that's what I tell it a lot to other manufacturers, is what we do is basically we connect you with anybody that makes sense. So if you wanted to develop a training program, we're gonna make sure not only we're gonna provide you the training providers, they're gonna execute the training, but also we're going to figure out a way, how can we reduce the cost? Why? Because we partnered with companies that make sense to partner with for the good of manufacturing. So, you mentioned it, and I just wanted
Absolutely.
to drive it home.
That's fantastic. I think the other thing that the SRMA does that's really terrific is the plant tours.
Yep.
So, right, being able to go in and see another manufacturing facility and see how they're doing things, learn some best practices from them, right? Be able to learn from whoever we've got coming in to do, education and training, like the recent plant tour we did here
Yep.
at Pelican Wire. We had a facilitator come in that knows the entrepreneurial operating system and teach about that, and then everyone got to come through our facility and sort of
Yep.
see it in action. I think that's
Yeah, it was fun. It was great. Yes, and we're trying to also collaborate with all types of organizations. Sometimes even not from Florida. Sometimes even not from United States. I mean, for example, we were fortunate enough to collaborate with an organization in Australia, but they're worldwide. And what they do is they have a program called Lean Japan Tour. So basically, you go to Japan and you visiting different factories, usually the TPS, Toyota Production System, and you're learning Lean the Japanese way, which is kind of mind blowing. So that's something we're trying to bring to our local Florida. Some best practices from not just from local best practices, but we're trying to bring even from the world, from Japan, because we all know Japanese, the way of Lean is is unique and very effective, efficient. So that's one of the things. Another, actually, I think you have a few of your guys maybe going there. The Goldratt.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another one. We were able to bring Goldratt Consulting to Southwest Florida.
Right.
And
And those that are listening that know manufacturing may not recognize the name, right? But that Goldrat's the gentleman who wrote the book called The Goal,
The
right?
Goal,
It's all
yeah.
about
It's
theory
like-
of
Yeah,
constraints.
true.
And
Yep.
I mean, it's a fantastic program, and what a terrific opportunity to go. I guess it's his son, right?
Yeah, Rami.
That
Yep.
kind of doing the consulting piece of it, came down and gave a presentation to the SRMA members, and now he's back doing a deep dive for the individual businesses. So yeah, I've got, I think, three or four people there
Nice.
today.
Yeah, I'm going there after here. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Gonna be a little late.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. But those are all just great examples of the opportunities. And again, right, if you're just an individual manufacturer and maybe you know, 5-person, 10-person shop,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to have time to go dig all that stuff up and find people and bring them in. And right, there's a cost associated with that. And we can pool our resources together, get the local community and the local,
That's right.
government and the state to kind of support this stuff. We can really drive manufacturing. That's why I think there's such a huge potential for
Huge
manufacturing.
potential, and it's accelerating. I mean, so 10 years ago we were number 15 manufacturing state for employment. Now we are number 10.
Wow.
We just surpassed New York last year. And our goal, we have an ambitious goal. We want to be number 3 by the year of 2030. And I don't think it's not possible. I mean, we are pretty competitive with a lot of states. So
Mhm.
just to jump a few more spots, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And even to get to number 3, I mean, then you have the big players like Texas, California, that will be a little more challenging to surpass.
Right.
But
right.
I think we can get there too. Like you said, we have so many organizations that are so focused to grow Florida, whatever it takes. And the manufacturing is really in the backbone of the economy, because manufacturing also has, I don't know if you know, but it has the best multiplier effects for any industries, meaning that one job in manufacturing is going to create between 7 to 12 jobs in other related industries. There is no other industry that has such multiplier effect, because if you're opening a manufacturing factory, you need a lot of other things around it. A lot of other businesses going to start flourishing around manufacturing.
Wow.
And the best example I like to bring is when we had the idea of, okay, let's find cheap labor, or you know what? Let's just move out our manufacturing facility. Like, for example, I like to bring Erie, Pennsylvania. They had a flourishing town, flourishing manufacturing, flourishing businesses. But then they decided, oh, how about we move somewhere to Mexico or China or wherever for cheap labor? And then what happened to the town?
Yeah.
It's a ghost town now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now we're starting to recognize it, not just in Florida, we have a really good strategy, but I think now we're also starting to realize it in our government as well. And that's why there's such big push to bring manufacturing back, because it's so important. Because it's not just the manufacturing jobs that you create, it's all the other jobs you also create.
Right.
And plus you make it here in the United States. So that's the multiplier effect.
Your story about Erie is a really important one, because I think part of the reason why the U.S. has lost so much manufacturing is really just not good foresight and good vision about where you can take manufacturing. You know, there's a lot of focus right now on advanced manufacturing and automation,
Yep.
and that's going to be critical, particularly for a state like Florida, where, you know, let's face it, the land value down here just continues to go up and up. You can't throw labor at manufacturing down here. You have to look at it differently. You have to think about, how do you drive the productivity, right? How do
Yep.
you use some of the advanced manufacturing capabilities that
Exactly.
are out there? You know, we've got some phenomenal universities in the state of Florida that are on the cutting edge of these things. And it all ties back to organizations like Florida Makes and the SRMA, and, you know, having these kind of hubs in place that can really connect those dots. Listen to that local manufacturer that's got a challenge or a problem, or is having difficulty finding people. Okay, let's look at this problem differently. Do you really need more people, or is there another way for us to solve this that allows everybody to gain from an investment in the organization? So I think that's something that we're going to have to continue to look at as a state. How do we invest in that? How do we make sure we drive those ideas back into manufacturing? Because I don't think we're going to do it by labor. I don't think we're going to do it by just growing headcount in manufacturing, right? We really have to look at, how do we not be just the largest manufacturing state, but the most productive manufacturing state in the U.S.
Exactly. There you go. You just said it. Productivity. So there is a productivity index for manufacturing. That's something we also measure ourselves.
Right.
And with productivity is basically the output of dollars per employee, right? In manufacturing, that's your productivity index. So our productivity index is not amazing in Florida. We're really working on accelerating it. And you mentioned a few things: automation, AI, and that's also, like, as you were talking, I gotta also say one thing is, manufacturing employment is also changing. So we also have a lot of efforts going to schools. Florida Makes, we have actually a whole department, FLATE. All they do is go talking to schools from K to 12 to educate kids that manufacturing is not only a viable option, it's a necessary option, and it's gonna be like you're going to be rich in manufacturing because back then it's saying, oh, it's a dirty job. I don't want to go to manufacturing, right?
Right.
But it's changing.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have automation, we have robotics, we have AI.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to stand on a factory floor and press a button anymore.
Right.
That a robot can do that.
Yeah.
But we need this. We need to elevate your skill set. We need to get you educated so that you can do the sophisticated stuff. So you know how to operate those machines. So you know how to troubleshoot those machines.
Absolutely.
Those are the things we're looking for, and that's why we need people in manufacturing. So we need lots of employment. We need kids to get to consider manufacturing, to understand manufacturing. And many times, unfortunately, still, they don't even know what manufacturing is all about. And that's another thing we do is educate those kids. So you need to consider manufacturing and you need to understand it. How much of an impact is going to be, I mean, obviously for your personal, because you're going to just be wealthy because of that. You're going to support your family, but also on the regional level, how you're going to support the economy.
Right.
So that's another thing with big effort. You mentioned automation, AI. So what do you do? Do you do anything for how do you evolve and improve your business or with this kind of
it's been
industry 4.0?
Yep, it's been an area of focus for us. So we're maybe a little hard to get your head wrapped around, but we're manufacturing wire. So if you can imagine the process of making wire, you've got this very long continuous length of something that you're running through various processes. And kind of the tradition in the wire and cable industry is you've got one or more operators that are running an individual machine, right? Kind of maintaining this flow of material going through it. So we've tried to look at that differently and say, how do we flip that and start thinking, instead of how many operators do we have in a machine, how many machines can we automate so that a single operator can manage more than one machine? That's been the automation for us. It's more AI than it is robotics, because it's machine controls, right? It's trying to put quality sensing equipment on the machine so that the machine can actually make some decisions on its own about, is there something that's going on that needs an adjustment? The machine can evaluate that through, some type of an AI engine. AI kind of blew up in the media, right, a couple of years ago, but neural networking and those concepts, right, being applied to statistical analysis, that's actually been around for quite a while, right?
Exactly. People don't realize that. Yeah.
So we that's kind of our focus, is how can we use some of this automation concepts and AI concepts and be able to use them to manage our equipment so that the equipment can kind of maintain itself. And now the operator can be someone that is a higher skill set individual that understands the AI, understands the control systems, and can be a monitor of that to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. So you're almost looking at it saying, you're trying to get rid of the person sitting there pressing the button. We don't need somebody doing that. We can figure out how to do that, but somebody has to monitor the process. Someone has to understand it. We don't do a lot of CNC type work, but in companies that do CNC, right, somebody has to program those CNCs to know what it's supposed to do, where it's supposed to move, how much it's supposed to take away. That is the future of employment in manufacturing in this area. And those kind of jobs obviously have a higher pay scale to them.
Those are the sexier jobs of manufacturing that people don't know about, or the kids don't know.
Again, right, the land value down here keeps going up. So if you want to come to Florida and be part of the manufacturing ecosystem, there's a barrier to entry there with the cost of housing that we have to get over as a manufacturing state. How are we going to continue to do that? The good news is that we have this beautiful place to live. So people love to move here, right? There's a lot of benefits, right? The tax system in the state of Florida is, something that people look towards and say, I'd rather be in that kind of tax environment than perhaps another state that has higher taxes and right? So there's a lot of advantages to attract people here. And then we just have to figure out how do we get them connected with who we are and what the opportunities are in the area.
Yeah, the cost of living is definitely something we need to resolve.
Yeah.
one way or the other. I mean, can we pay more? I think that's the best way to resolve it, right? But
Right.
that's
Right.
yeah.
It's so funny. I live many neighborhoods, right, ones where you have a lot of snowbirds, right? Our friends and family that come down and they stay here half the year and then they go away.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, it's a lot of year-round residents, right? So I go out and I walk my dog or drive around the neighborhood or whatever, and I see these houses, and every once in a while you kind of get towards the end of the school year, and suddenly out comes the flags, right? Obviously this person had a kid that's going to be a Florida Gator, and this one's going to be a Boilermaker, right? And this one's going to be to Arkansas. It's like, man, these are kids that probably don't even understand what's available in their own backyard, right? Don't know that this opportunity is here for them. So the more we communicate with people what it is that manufacturing is, what it does for the community, and the opportunities that are available, there's a lot of homegrown talent that we need to be taking more advantage of.
Exactly. It's so true. I mean, so when you go to a barber, you always talk to, like, you have this kind of intellectual conversation. Sounds not so intellectual. So my barber, he's younger than me, maybe 7 or 8 years or so. So he knows the kids around, and it's funny. You mentioned that people want to move out of Florida. So a lot of his friends, some of them moved out of Florida, some of them still want to move out of Florida, and we always joke. I guess I don't understand what they got. I mean, it's the
Right.
best place on earth. So I happen to travel in different countries, different places, cold, hot environments, whatever. And when I get to Florida, I just fell in love right away. I said, that's my place. That's my home. That's it. I finally found home. Because since I traveled so much, I never felt at home anywhere
Yeah.
until I got here.
Yeah.
And then when I'm hearing the people thinking to move out of Florida, and actually that's the first thing they want to do when they whatever finish school. Why? Like, so there's so many opportunities here. It's the best place. The weather is phenomenal. I mean, there's there's no reason why.
Right.
But exactly, maybe they just don't see the opportunity, and they think the cost of living is so high they cannot find employment. And I think the only opportunity in Florida is to be a bartender or a waiter in a restaurant.
Right.
Right. That's probably the kind of the.
Absolutely.
So, and you have no idea what's around the corner. You
Absolutely.
have an amazing manufacturing facility
And that's fine. There's great schools all around the country and all around the world for that matter. But the question is, when they're done with schooling, do they know what they could come back to, right? Or do they get stuck in, okay, now I want to be in manufacturing, or I want to be in some STEM related thing, I don't think to move back to Florida, right? That's not the place I think of, right? I need to go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Be involved in the cutting edge.
Well, maybe it's, sometimes there is, I guess, a sense of self exploration, determination, like figuring out what you want for yourself. So this is fine. Yeah, go and travel, go figure it out. But I just think you always need to consider what's actually home, what we called home before, what opportunities you have. But yeah, I guess when you're young, right? We both were young. So at one point we wanted to travel. I understand that.
My first 3 years of school, I was in northern Georgia, and I corrected that and moved back to Florida. So
there you go. And it's not even that bad, right? Northern Georgia.
Oh, North Georgia's beautiful. It's a great area, but it's not Florida. So.
Yeah, it's not Florida though, right? Actually, nowadays, so when I go somewhere north, and and it's during the winter or when it's still cold, the summer is usually only 3 months or 2 months, right? And then it's cold, and then we go there maybe for 1 week, 2 weeks. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to come back. And then I was thinking to myself, how did they live here for so long? Like in this cold climate places.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's fascinating. But yeah, to your point, the schools here are amazing in Florida. The investment in the educational system is great. And I keep thinking, okay, my daughter she's turning 13 this year. So we're starting to think, okay, she already knows what she wants to do. She wants to do in biology. Okay. But I don't think it's going to change. I thought it was going to change, but she's been talking about it for 5 years, marine biology.
All right.
And I keep thinking, okay, which schools should we send her? I'm asking maybe there is something good in, like, I think there is San Diego in California, there is one of the best ones, and there is one somewhere out of state. But then I'm starting to discover how strong the university is here in Florida. And actually even Florida Gulf Coast University, which is like 20 minutes from us.
Absolutely.
It's an amazing university that is growing.
Yeah. Well, I think the University of South Florida has one of the best marine biology programs in the country.
Really?
Yeah. Go Bulls.
Nice.
Got to put a plug in.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so we spoke about a lot of things. So how about what do you see? Like, what would be your advice for for manufacturing? What's the takeaways and for continually growing?
Well, I think for me, it's really knowing who you are and knowing what it is that your company does, right? What your focus is, what your passion is. The more that you can discover that, I think the more success you'll have in your business. We recently started to implement the entrepreneurial operating system. Frank Saragosi, who's one of the partners with
Frank Sargos, yeah, he's great.
Yep,
Yep.
he has come in and kind of helped us with that, and that's one of those early things that you do in the process is really talk about what is the business, what are you really trying to accomplish, what are you great at, what is it that gets you up every day and gets you excited. Um, uh, uh, Jim Collins wrote a book, and he talks in there about the hedgehog concept. Right, the short synopsis of the story is, you've got hedgehogs and you've got foxes, right? And the fox is this, sleek, capable thing, right? Really nimble and has all these, really sly, and then there's the simple hedgehog, right? And they just get up every day and kind of do their thing, and they're out trying to get their food, and they're walking along, and here comes the fox, right? And the fox is like, I can figure out how to get this hedgehog, right? And the hedgehog does one thing, and it does one thing really well. It protects itself, right?
Yeah.
So the fox comes running along and tries to tackle the hedgehog, and the hedgehog just thinks, here we go again. And he rolls up in a little ball of all these, spikes, and then the fox goes away to try and scheme another way to get the hedgehog tomorrow, right? But the point of the story is that the hedgehog knows what it is, and focuses on doing that one thing really, really well. So the more you can identify what it is that you do really, really well, be able to exploit that, right? To use that to your advantage. To me, that's a huge thing. Like, know your focus. And I think for smaller manufacturers or any small business, like, it takes a little while to figure out what it is that you're really going to do different than the rest of the competition. Our company just kind of stumbled into resistance wire because that happened to be what those machines that Larry bought back in the 60s did, right? That was the niche that equipment was doing, that those customers wanted. And then we started finding other things that related to that, and other things that related to that. And then we got into thermocouple, right? But it all kind of comes back to this idea of custom engineered wire solutions. That's what we are all about. We're not a commodity shop, right? We don't get into some of the high volume non-alloy based products. We sort of know who we are, and that allows us to focus in and be our own hedgehog in that area, right? There's a few foxes out there that have tried to come play in our marketplace, and we've been doing it for so long.
Just be really good.
So much about how we do it, and making sure that we execute well against it, that it's very difficult for somebody to come in and try and tackle our customer.
And what's unique is also and amazing that you're always open for ways to improve and get better at what you already do really well.
Right.
So you mentioned EOS, right, and Frank Saragosi, which I think is a great system for improving. It's funny. So I met with Frank maybe 3 years ago now. And that's when he was becoming third-party provider. And I was introduced by our, back then, he retired, but our operations director, and he said, "Yeah, Frank is amazing. I worked with him before. We got to make him a third-party provider." So we started talking, and then Frank did a small version of the presentation that I think he did it for you too the first time. So, but for me, he did it for a small. I'm like, wow,
Right.
it's amazing. And then he told me, you should read the book, Traction Code. So I read the book, and guess what I started doing after I read the book? I started applying it to my own life, like a business, because I think I'm a business, right? Maybe a small business, like one person show, but it's a business. So I started applying it to my life. Maybe not as sophisticated as an organization will do, but still, and the book also has. So I purchased an Audible, so it's like I'm listening, but also you can get all the templates for the quarterly rocks and all these kind of things. What's your 10-year audacious goal? So I use the template, I put it up, and now I'm reviewing it once a week, sometimes maybe once every 2 weeks, but definitely every quarter I'm looking at okay, what's my goals, what's my rocks, things like that. Since then, I feel it just started going and I always took notes, right? I always took notes every morning. I'll take notes, what I need to do, what's my top 5 things to do. But it wasn't I'm still doing the same thing I was doing before, the notes taking, and making sure that I'm on target, I'm not on target, what I can do better. I always did it. I did it for many years. But since I started doing this EOS, it's a more structured approach. Exactly what do you need to do? How do I need to adjust it? It helps. And I feel like I'm just on a trajectory getting better.
Yeah, it's a really good disciplined approach, disciplined process to make you think a little more strategically than just the day to day. What do I need to get done right now? Who do I need to call right now? Right?
Yep.
It forces you to kind of step back and think more about what are we really trying to accomplish here, right? What's the real purpose of why we're here and what we're doing?
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's a great Traction by Gino Wickman's a great book. There's another one called Get a Grip. It's like a little told like a fable, and it talks about a company that implements the EOS. And there's other programs out there that are like that, but EOS is pretty well known. I know Grow FL talks quite a bit about EOS and kind of encourages companies, particularly second stage companies that are starting to get into that growth mode but don't quite know how to do it. That's something they encourage them to do. I actually originally heard about EOS. I guess I didn't tell this part of the Pelican story. So we're an employee owned company. We're what's called an ESOP,
That's right.
employee stock ownership plan. So basically, our company is owned by our employees. The employees are the beneficiary of the business. So when you come to work for our company, you start to gather shares in kind of this virtual account. And then when you leave the business, the company buys those shares back from you. So it's kind of like a retirement program, but it really is a way to helping get people engaged in the business, right? The great game of business. How do you get people engaged? How do you get them thinking about the company like an owner? How do you do it? You make them an owner, right? You make them part of the ownership structure of the business. Anyway, because we're an employee-owned business, I'm involved in a lot of other organizations that support employee-owned business, like the ESOP Association. And they talk quite a bit about EOS as a way to the entrepreneurial operating system, as a way to get employees engaged, a way to share the information, share the financial metrics, share the goals and objectives of the company, so that you could get more alignment and engagement with the employees.
And making sure everybody's also sitting in the right seat.
Absolutely.
On the bus, right?
Right.
He's talking a lot about the bus.
Yeah. Right people, the right seats, and absolutely.
You can have the right person at the wrong seat.
There's a lot of great tools in the toolbox in the EOS, no doubt about it.
So it's great. It's working well. I know you're already a little on a journey, on a EOS journey, right? So I guess it helped you focus even more on your core values.
Absolutely. Yeah. Core values, the business, and the mission and the purpose. In fact, it was through one of the early EOS exercises we were talking about, what's our vision and purpose for the organization, right? So kind of vision is, what do you do? And purpose is why do you do it, right? So,
Yep.
our vision is all about, we want to be the company that people think of first when it comes to custom engineered wire products. That is what we do as an organization. But our purpose is all about financial freedom, right? It's all about giving our employees that financial freedom so that when they retire, they know they've got something there to be able to, continue on with. And it's, some companies do 401ks, and we have a 401k, but we don't do any matching because the ESOP program provides such a high
Better than
benefit level for the employees. So, I haven't retired my first millionaire yet, but I'm on my way. It's a journey, and it's one of my goals before I'm done is to turn a few millionaires out of this business. So
that's a great goal.
yeah.
It's amazing. So what's the growth plan for Pelican Wire then?
Well, we stay focused on our core business. So I mentioned that I'm CEO of Wire Experts Group as well. So after we converted the company over to employee owned, we started looking for acquisition opportunities, and that's something that I'm still looking for, opportunities like that. We found a company out in Colorado called Rubidoux Wire that we've actually known for many years. They also do wire and cable manufacturing, but different types of wire and different customer base. So we actually wound up acquiring Rubidoux Wire. They became part of our whole employee ownership structure. So bringing them on board actually helped increase the overall company. So we continue to look for acquisition opportunities. We continue to focus on marketing. So as I mentioned before, it's kind of a challenging world, but we're starting to focus more on it now, really working on marketing and lead generation. Now that we've got a more clear focus on what the purpose is for Pelican Wire, right? Like what we do and why we do it. So I think we'll continue to find opportunities and continue to grow the business.
So marketing, what do you think that lead generation you can do the traditional way, like just like online and market it this way, and you can get to your ideal client?
So for us, our mission is really, we want to be the person somebody thinks of first when they have a custom engineered wire problem that they're trying to solve. So embedded in that is you have to know who Pelican Wire is. You're going to think of us first. You got to know who we are. So our marketing efforts kind of revolve around two things. Is trying to get more and more people to know who we are. It's not like we're a household name, right? We're not that large, but trying to get in front of other manufacturers so that they understand if they run into a problem, they have a problem with the wire and cable that they're working with. We want to help them solve that problem, right? So we want them to know that we're there. And then the second piece of marketing is all about lead generation. So once somebody starts asking questions and doing research, we want to try and find out who that person is so we can reach out and see if there's something that we can help them with. I think the latest statistic I heard is that the modern buyer, the modern engineer buyer, spends about 70% of the buying cycle doing research online before they contact anybody. So by the time an engineer reaches out to you, they've already spent 70% of the time that they plan to spend to solve their problem. Right? Exactly. Right. So
you got to be
very narrow, right? Of trying to get to that person and be the one that really helps them solve their problem. So for us, that's kind of the marketing thing, right? In that 70%, we need to know that they know who we are. Otherwise, we never get to be in their 30%.
Yeah, so in the 70%, you got to figure out how can they find you easily. And then when they find you, how can they learn about you themselves?
Yeah.
So how can you tell them the story without talking to them, but just kind of browsing through and just watching maybe some videos or whatever, they can understand who you are.
I mean, it used to be a big focus on search engine optimization, and that's still really important, right? You still have to spend time and effort on that. But the search engines have gotten so focused on advertising and other revenue streams that it's harder and harder to just focus on that as your marketing effort. You got to think outside the box, and you know, we're doing things like using AI to help us write white papers.
Yeah.
So we've got content and we've got engineers that are really intelligent about wire and cable products, but they're not necessarily the best writers in the world, right? We didn't hire them because they're Hemingway. We hired them because
Exactly.
they know something about wire and cable, right? So trying to tap their knowledge and then turn that into something that would be useful to somebody, and that's in their research, right? To find out more about what it is that they're looking for, and at least get them into the idea that, okay, this company understands the problems that I'm dealing with, and therefore they can help me solve them.
Yep. And that's the funny thing. I mean, with AI, yeah, it's so much easier now to write things, right, and make it right for you. So this is great. But then it can also create a lot of noise, because now the companies that are not as good, maybe with the product itself, but they can also use AI and write other stuff. So now you kind of, when you're reading it, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
So it's actually going to make it more difficult, the research of this engineer. So
Right.
70% research.
Absolutely.
I
don't
it's
know
a
about
crazy
you.
world.
I've gotten to the point now, you know, for forever, when I opened my web browser, right, I always went to Google. I'd always set my homepage to Google. Now when I open my web browser, I've got 3 different tabs that open. One's Google, one's ChatGPT, and actually my third one is my EOS
Nice.
template, right? So it's like,
Try Grok. Have you tried
what?
Grok?
Grok? I don't
Grok.
think I've tried that one yet.
Yeah, so I wasn't impressed with ChatGPT, so I found a different one. It's called Hyperwrite.ai, something like that. So I actually subscribe to that. I think it's better than ChatGPT, writing skills and things like that. But then Elon Musk kept talking about Grok, the next level. The next level is going to be amazing. I gave it a try. They give it to you for free. You can try it for free. And I liked it. I really liked it. So I subscribed to this one as well. And I just downgraded my Hyperwrite. So I use those two now.
Interesting.
So Hyperwrite is still better into certain things. It can do better research than Grok, especially if it's writing related. But Grok has better capability of answering certain questions, I guess. So you should give it a try. So tell me what you think.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was never big on ChatGPT for some reason. I tried it and then it's kind of.
Well, this is, you know, you asked the question, right? What, you know, as a manufacturer, what do you do? What do you look out for, right? This is part of it, right? I think this is part of the reason why the United States lost its lead in manufacturing, is really not being at the forefront of technology, which is so ironic, because so much technology originates out of the United States, right? But we didn't really turn around and use it for ourselves and try and make ourselves better. So hopefully with this next revolution, you know, we actually use the tools and try to improve our manufacturing capabilities so we could do more of it in the United States.
So what do you think about the current manufacturing state with all this, you know, a little bit of unsettling seas?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly
Political, economical.
You know, I've always said that I can play a game and I play games well, but I have to know what the rules are. It's hard to play a game when you don't know what the rules are, right? And that's kind of how I feel right now. The rules keep getting rewritten. And you know, I definitely had some anxiety about it at first, but I've kind of stepped back and said, okay, you know, the reality is that those rules are going to change. So the new rule is that you don't know what the rules are, and you have to just be prepared, and you have to be nimble, and you have to look back and really make sure. It actually comes back to something we talked about earlier, right? That you know who you are and what you do. Know who you are and you know what to do. Okay, then you just stay focused on that. And if something changes that you have to react to, then you react, right? You be prepared. You look out for the fox, right?
Exactly.
And when they come charging, you got to roll into a ball and make sure they don't get you, right? But yeah, it's definitely an unsettling time. I will say though, for our business, 2025 has started really strong. good start to the year. So far, we haven't really seen that pull back. We're fully prepared that the input costs into our products will be going up thanks to the
Yeah.
tariffs. Unfortunately, quite a bit of what we use for raw materials in our products, while we buy mostly from domestic sources, many of their
Yeah.
suppliers are not
They get
domestic.
it from.
So we know that prices are going to go up. And when that happens, we're not really going to have much choice in the matter. We're going to have to pass those
Yeah.
costs on to to our customers. And I think everybody's kind of prepared for that right now, that input costs are going to go up, and that's going to ripple through the industry. And I don't see anything that gives me confidence or feeling that that's going to change.
Yep.
It's hard to say, but I guess the new rule is that you don't know what the rules are. And you wake up every day and you check the rule book and see what it is today, and try and play the game the best you
Yeah.
can.
I love that. Great. I think it's a great advice. Just focus on what you do, focus on what you can do,
Right.
focus how you can improve, and paying attention to all the noise outside and worrying and
Yeah.
about it. Is it going to help you? Is it going to help
Absolutely.
your family? Is it going to help your community?
Yep. We've certainly had a number of potential customers come to us and say, we're thinking about relocating our manufacturing into the United States. What would that mean?
Wow.
So maybe there'll be some
Interesting.
transition that happens out of it. I feel that it's going to take time, though, right?
Yeah, it's
Again, if you don't know if the rules are going to stay the way they are, do you make that investment? Do you not make that investment? I think until we get to some kind of stability, it'll be hard for people to make those kind of final decisions.
But even if you make the decision, I mean, moving from a different country to another, to a new country,
It's not something you're going to do overnight.
it's
right?
not like just for the family to do it without anything else. It's it's a long process, right?
Exactly.
But moving an entire manufacturing operation,
Right.
that's
It's a long process. And again, if you don't, so the uncertainty plays into it, right? So am I going to start that investment today? If 6 months from now, when I might be ready to start manufacturing, I don't know what the rules are going to be. I don't know if I'm going to make that investment. I don't know if I would expect my customers to make that investment right now.
Yeah.
But if we get to some level of stability and some clearness as to sort of what we're trying to accomplish in the uncertainty that's out there right now, right? Some really clear goals and objectives, so that everybody understands what the rules are and why the rules are what they are. There's certainly opportunity for some benefit to U.S. manufacturing to come out.
I think so. So let's close it on a positive note. The key takeaway, I think, is focus on. Focus on what you do. Find what you do really well. Keep doing it. Keep improving it, and keep an open mind for how you can get better.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Ted?
I think that's a good. It's a good summary. And don't forget your employees, right? Don't forget the team that is making it happen. And I think, good conclusion.
Well, I think it was a good one. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pavel. Appreciate you coming down and
Absolutely.
meeting with me and hearing the Pelican Wire story.
Yes, it was a fascinating story. Looking forward for the new chapters in the book.
Great.